Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Manupetya Apetya Krityam Tapaino Vira Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmanitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Bhaktya Vihina Paradalaksho Kiptashtakamadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we're going to finish the Srimad Bhagavatam discussion of Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Nrsingadev today. Circle back to the very beginning of the seventh canto, how all this came about. And we're going to begin by first offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas Vaishnavis. So after Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev had their conversation, right? And Prahlad was expressing his sentiments of bhakti, unmotivated by anything material, only wanted to be the selfless, fully dedicated servant of the Lord. And Lord Nrsingadev was so much appreciative of his mood, and nonetheless offered the benediction that not only he, but his relatives for 21 generations. And Srila Prabhupada explained something very interesting, that means not just the relatives descended from his birth and status to Hiranyakashipu, but when that kind of benediction is given, it means the ancestors from previous lifetimes as well, which is quite astonishing. But from the vision of the Lord, he's not under the illusion that, oh, I am this person in this dynasty. We're the soul journeying, Brahmande Brahmite Kon Bhagavanajiv, right? We're going up and down everywhere, different species, different families, different planets. So wherever we contact, once you become pure, whatever so-called family members are connected, they're all going to be benefited. So now, Lord Brahma is very happy. It says, Lord Brahma, surrounded by the other demigods, was bright-faced because the Lord was pleased. Thus he offered prayers to the Lord with transcendental words. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Lord of all lords, proprietor of the entire universe, O benedictor of all living entities, O original person, Adipurush, because of our good fortune, you have now killed this sinful demon who is giving trouble to the entire universe. Srila Prabhupada quotes, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate, right? Bhagavad Gita 10:8. Krishna is saying, I'm the Lord of everything, And now Lord Brahma is so happy. This demon, Hiranyakashipu, received from me the benediction that he would not be killed by any living entity within my creation. With this assurance and with the strength derived from austerities and mystic power, he became excessively proud and transgressed all the Vedic injunctions. The dangers of power, wealth, right? Strength. Very proud. You have to be humble to be happy and truly successful. And humility is a very nice mentality to be situated in. Right? So, by great fortune, Hiranyakashipu's son, Prahlad Maharaj, has now been released from death. For although he is a child, he is an exalted devotee. Now he is fully under the protection of your lotus feet. So, Lord Brahma and the demigods are very happy for Prahlad. And they're glorifying him, which is proper. Lord Nrsingadev instructed that one should hear the glories of myself and my devotees like Prahlad. Remember just previously. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the Supreme Soul. If one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death. Right? The fear of death, or sometimes death itself. We can't avoid death, but properly situated, we can remain free from fear of it, because we know the soul never dies, and we're liberation from this body at old age, when it can't do any more service, it's actually a good thing. Now we get a fresh start with another body, maybe more qualified. Now, the Lord is going to reply to Lord Brahma. Give him a little chastisement. The personality of Godhead replied, My dear Lord Brahma, O great Lord, born from the lotus flower, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, so it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, who are by nature ferocious and jealous. I warn you not to give such benedictions to any demon again. Now, we go back to Narad Muni, who's speaking to King Yudhisthira. He says, O King Yudhisthira, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is not visible to an ordinary human being, spoke in this way, instructing Lord Brahma. Then, being worshipped by Brahma, the Lord disappeared from that place. Prahlad Maharaj then worshipped and offered prayers to all the demigods, such as Brahma, Shiva, and the Prajapatis, who were all parts of the Lord. So even though the Lord told them all to worship and hear about Prahlad's glories, Prahlad, being situated in transcendence and with the natural humility and graceful gratitude of the devotee, is honoring the demigods, Brahma, Shiva, Prajapatis. Why? Because he sees them as servants of the Lord. And they're all situated in the universe. They all have a duty to perform. He also is going to have a duty. Thereafter, along with Shukracharya and the other great saints, Lord Brahma, whose seat is on the lotus flower, made Prahlad the king of all the demons and giants in the universe. Giants. O King Yudhisthira, after all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma were properly worshipped by Prahlad Maharaj, they offered Prahlad their utmost benedictions and then returned to their respective abodes. Thus, the two associates of Lord Vishnu, who had become Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the sons of Diti, were both killed. By illusion, they had thought that the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, was their enemy. Srila Prabhupada explains the discourse concerning Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj began when Maharaj Yudhisthira asked Narad how Shishupal had merged into the body of Krishna. Shishupal and Dantavakra were the same Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Here, Narad Muni is relating how, in 3 different births, the associates of Lord Vishnu were killed by Lord Vishnu himself. First, there were the demons Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So, what kind of illusion were they under? This is something that, you think about a lot. These were Jaya and Vijaya, eternal Nitya Siddha associates of the Lord in Vaikuntha. So what kind of illusion could cause them to fall and act so terribly as they did? Was it Mahamaya? No, not Mahamaya. Srila Prabhupada explains elsewhere that devotees descending from Vaikuntha, whatever role they're playing, they're never under the influence of Mahamaya. Everything is always Yogamaya. Right? But it appears like Mahamaya. It appears that, oh God, they're so envious and angry towards the Lord and doing so many terrible things. But this is all part of the plan of the Lord. Right? Just like Mahamaya herself is an expansion of Yogamaya. And so she is in charge of arranging for the prison-like conditions, the rewards and sufferings of the living entities in this material universe, right? That's her job, and sometimes she's ashamed of it. But the Lord, remember the story of Parvati doing austerities in Navadvip at Samantadvip to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, having heard of him from her husband. She was so embarrassed about her position, and he said, no, you are my eternal servant. You're actually an expansion of my own internal energy, my own most dear Radhika herself. So, please don't consider yourself, in that negative light. This is you are serving me in this way. So they accepted this. Actually, another way the story is told is that they anticipated that the Lord would want this opportunity to fight very powerful demons, but who could do that but his associates? So they thought we should give the Lord a good fight. And in order for that to happen, the pastime of them being cursed and so-called sent into the body of demons would take place. Right? And so they were very good. But there's going to be more explanation about this. So then, being cursed by the Brahmanas, the same 2 associates took birth again as Kumbhakarna and the 10-headed Ravan. These 2 Rakshasas were killed by Lord Ramachandra's extraordinary power. Pierced by the arrows of Lord Ramachandra, both Kumbhakarna and Ravan lay on the ground and left their bodies, fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, just as they had in their previous births as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Right? Fully absorbed. There'll be some explanation. They both took birth again in human society as Shishupal and Dantavakra, and continued in the same enmity toward the Lord. It is they who merged into the body of the Lord in your presence. So Srila Prabhupada gives a little purport here. In that verse, there's the word Vairanu-bandena. Acting like the Lord's enemy is also beneficial for the living entity. Kamadveshad bhaktyasnehad. That's a quote from the first chapter. We're going to go back to that. Whether in lusty desire, anger, fear, or envy of the Lord, somehow or other, as recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami, one should become attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ultimately achieve the goal of returning home back to Godhead. What then is to be said of one who is related to the Supreme Lord of Godhead as a servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover? So then, Narad goes on, not only Shishupal and Dantavakra, but also many, many other kings who acted as enemies of Krishna attained salvation at the time of death. Because they thought of the Lord, they received spiritual bodies and forms the same as his. Just as worms captured by a black drone, that's like a kind of a wasp, uh, obtain the same type of body as the drone. Drone means like, worker, right? And so Srila Prabhupada, trying to help us understand that, quotes from the sixth canto, that story of Ajamil, right? Uh, and his seeing the Vishnu Dutas and receiving instruction from them, and uh, and the benefit that he got, even though his meditation was a bas, but he was chanting the name of the Lord constantly, which is the point here. The Lord is all merciful and is in his name, and even if one is chanting in the different forms of a bas, so much purification and bhakti sukriti is happening. So, Srila Prabhupada says we conclude that if one practices thinking of Vishnu and is fully absorbed in thinking of him at the time of death, one returns home back to Godhead. Even enemies of Krishna, who thought of Krishna in fear, such as King Kamsa, received bodies in a spiritual identity similar to that of the Lord. Wow. The power of that meditation. However, don't think it's so easy. The fact that these people, these demons, are meditating in anger, there's some special benediction there. Because I saw this conversation with Srila Prabhupada where they asked him, if we remember Krishna at the time of death, will we go to him? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes. He said, but it's impossible that you will be able to remember Krishna unless you are pure devotee. Right? Otherwise, it won't be possible at that time. So much disturbance is going on. Right? So in other words, you have to have come to that stage where you are beyond the misconception that I'm this body, right? That and everything that goes with it, all the influence of the false ego, how it extends. Now, of course, in every case, there's always, the holy name is so merciful, there's always exceptions, especially during the time of Mahaprabhu. But Srila Prabhupada is making the point, it's a process, and you have to come to that. Otherwise, the next stage is described in Bhagavad Gita. You may go to the higher planets and associate favorably with exalted personalities there, and then come back to this earth and resume bhakti under these conditions in an even more favorable way. Or you may take birth in this world in a high-class family as a brahmana or wealthy mercantile family, but with your devotional scars, some scars there in the heart, ready to be activated, right? So, so then he says, by devotional service, pure devotees who incessantly think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead receive bodies similar to his. This is known as Sarupya Mukti. Although Shishupal, Dantavakra, and other kings thought of Krishna as an enemy, they also achieved the same result. So this conversation is answering a question that goes back to the very beginning of this canto. Srila Prabhupada gives a purport where he explains many different examples of such demons. He says that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in connection with Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, it is explained that a devotee should externally execute his routine devotional service in a regular way, but should always inwardly think of the particular mellow in which he is attracted to the service of the Lord. So that means if you've awakened that mellow, that is in reference to when we come to that stage of Ekadash Bhav. It begins to show itself in the advanced stages of Asakti, But then when we enter into Bhav, we go into different stages of development and meditation on those 11 aspects of our eternal identity and our mood of service, right? So, uh, so that means someone who's on that stage of Bhav, still externally, they may execute their duties, whatever those may be, whatever status or station, like Brajanath in Jaiva Dharma. He also had achieved a very advanced stage in the stage of Bhav and had awakened his identity as a cowherd boy. But he was requested, ordered by his guru, to go back and live as a householder. Become married, live as a householder, and live a very perfect life in devotion and externally to show the example for people in society in general. If all the Vaishnavas were to leave their worldly responsibilities, then who would set the example and guide society to, in a proper way? It wouldn't happen. So, um, so he quotes that a devotee should externally execute his routine devotional service in a regular way, but should always inwardly think of the particular mellow in which he is attracted to the service of the Lord. His uncle, Vijay Kumar, however, was elderly, and he stayed in Puri and perfected his meditation on the beach. Brajanath's time for that would also come, right? But, we all have our duty to perform. And thus we see the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how he lived his life. No doubt internally absorbed because of his writings, his preaching, etc., but performing the civil duties and family responsibilities until he retired very late in life. Our Srila Prabhupada also performed the duties of a householder for many years, until he was maybe about 50 or so, a little older perhaps. Uh, so, let's see. Everything you asked me about how Shishupal and others attained salvation, although they were inimical, has now been explained to you by me. In this narration about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, various expansions or incarnations of the Lord have been described, and the killing of the two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, has also been described. This narration describes the characteristics of the great and exalted devotee Prahlad Maharaj, his staunch devotional service, his perfect knowledge, and his perfect detachment from material contamination. It also describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. In the prayers of Prahlad, so many beautiful prayers, full of um, moods of love, but also enriched by deep philosophical conclusions. So Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers has described the transcendental qualities of the Lord and has also described how the various abodes of the demigods and demons, regardless of how material opulent, are destroyed by the mere direction of the Lord. The principles of religion by which one can actually understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Bhagavad Dharma. In this narration, therefore, which deals with these principles, actual transcendence is properly described. So the principles of religion, Srila Prabhupada says, through them one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahman, the impersonal feature, Paramatma, the localized aspect, and when one is well conversant with all these principles, he becomes a devotee and performs Bhagavad Dharma. And Prahlad Maharaj, the spiritual master, in the line of disciplic succession, advised that this Bhagavad Dharma be instructed to students at the very beginning, right, when he was speaking to his childhood classmates. Komara achadat pragyo dharmam bhagavatamiha. right? From the very beginning of life. So then the benediction here, one who hears and chants this narration about the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is certainly liberated from material bondage without fail. Prahlad Maharaj was the best among the exalted devotees. Anyone who with great attention hears this narration concerning the activities of Prahlad Maharaj, the killing of Hiranyakashipu, and the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Nrsingadev surely reaches the spiritual world, where there is no anxiety. Don't think that these pastimes are somewhat less. These pastimes are so important and so powerful because they fix us in those qualities of devotion that are required in order to advance properly. We're reading a Bhajanahasya, right? Detachment. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam ba jagadisha kamaye. Prahlad Maharaj teaching that very strongly. We're hearing about humility, right? Tanadapi sunichenor, and offering respect to others, right? Amanina, amanadena, compassion, and tolerance. Tarodapi sahishnana. All these things are in these teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. So, Narad Muni continued, my dear Maharaj Yudhisthira, all of you, the Pandavas, are extremely fortunate. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, lives in your palace just like a human being. Great saintly persons know this very well, and therefore they constantly visit your house, right? And it goes on to glorify them, and because the Supreme Person is your most dear friend and constant well-wisher. He describes their relationship. And so, let's say, so he glorifies them, glorifies their relationship, and also many people come to your place because the Lord lives here, but in fact I come here because I want to see you, who are such a exalted devotee of the Lord, right? He wants the benediction of the devotee. All right, so I want to go back to the first chapter. How did all of this begin, right? How did all of this take place? What inspired all of this, right? Because this was 10, 11 chapters of this pastime, right? So if you go to the very first verse of the 7th chapter, let's see here. King Pariksit is inquiring, right, to Shukadev Goswami. And he says, oops, what's going on here? Here we go. So King Pariksit inquired, my dear Brahmana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, being everyone's well-wisher, is equal and extremely dear to everyone. How then did he become partial, like a common man, for the sake of Indra, and thus kill Indra's enemies? How can a person equal to everyone be partial to some and inimical to others? Lord Vishnu himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all pleasure. Therefore, what benefit would he derive from siding with the demigods? What interest would he fulfill in this way? Since the Lord is transcendental, why should he fear the asuras, and how could he be envious of him? That's a very deep question, actually, because the Lord is samoham sarvabhuteshu, right? Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone, right? But it appears that he takes sides, because paritranaya sadhunam vinashayacha dushkritam, right? I protect the devotees and annihilate the demons. But why? Because Dharma Sangstar Pranartaya, because I'm establishing religious principles for the benefit of all living entities, right? So Shukadev Goswami says, "Oh, my dear king, you have put before me an excellent question. Discourses concerning the activities of the Lord, in which the glories of his devotees are also found, are extremely pleasing to devotees." Right, that's important. Activities of the Lord, without devotees, those are very infrequent. I mean, we may hear about the Lord in the final moments of some pastime where he's killing a demon, right? But it's on behalf of the devotees. And it's in relationship to his loving exchange with those devotees. And in this case, even the demons may be his devotees who have taken that form to serve and please him in that way, right? But he's going to bring out something very special. Such wonderful topics always counteract the miseries of the materialistic way of life. Therefore, great sages like Narad always speak upon Srimad Bhagavatam because it gives one the facility to hear and chant about the wonderful activities of the Lord. Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto Srila Vyasadeva and then begin describing topics concerning the activities of Lord Hari. And then he goes on to explain that, yes, as you've said, the Lord is transcendental. He doesn't have a material body or a material ego. So the idea of friends and enemies within this world, it doesn't apply to him at all. He's equally disposed and kindly towards all living entities, but he may deal with them differently according to what they require in order to become purified and take benefit from him, right? So, we had this little saying when we were kids, somebody insults you, right? "Oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me," right? I'm detached from that. What can your insults do to me? They can't, of course, it doesn't go deep enough because they acknowledge that I can get harmed physically, but I can't get harmed emotionally. It's just, I'm above all that. But the Lord himself is above all of that. He can't be harmed in any way. And actually, all of his activities in this world, he has no business in this world except to enjoy pastimes. And what are those pastimes? They're either for the establishment of religious principles to guide living entities, to destroy demons who are obstacles to those religious principles, and to protect and show favor to the devotees and engage in pastimes with them so that that they can be joyful, and those who hear and recite those pastimes get great benefit too. And there's two kinds of pastimes. There's pastimes with devotees who are like sadhaks, who are becoming purified, and there are pastimes with devotees who are nitya siddha, who are coming down to assist the Lord and to show the beauty of the spiritual realm. Like Krishna in Dwarka, like Ram in Ayodhya, and ultimately like Krishna in Braj. Right? And so all of that it's all Leela, and Krishna's Leela is also completely transcendental. So in order to answer his question, Shukadev Goswami describes a pastime. And he says, "O king, at the Rajasuya sacrifice, Maharaj Yudhisthira, the son of Maharaj Pandu, personally saw Shishupal merge into the body of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, struck with wonder, he inquired about the reason for this from the great sage Narad, who was seated there. While he inquired, all the sages present also heard him ask his question." So this is the question that is kind of the question that Pariksit Maharaj is asking, but it's going to go set the stage for the entire Leela of uh, Jaya and Vijaya being cursed, the four Kumars, right? All the birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, all that history, everything that they did, right? It's all going to be described because Maharaj Yudhisthira is asking this question. Because he was performing his Rajasuya. And at that time, when you do a great yajna like Rajasuya, one person has to be accepted as the topmost who will receive the first worship, right? And uh, I think it was which Pandava, the two brothers, not Arjun, not Bhima, uh, maybe Sahadev, Nakula, Sahadev, one of those brothers, suggested that Krishna should receive the first worship. And of course, all the sages and everybody there understood Krishna's position. They said, yes, yes. But Shishupal was there. And Shishupal, from his youngest, as soon as he was able to speak, he began to blaspheme Krishna and criticize him. He hated Krishna. He was always meditating on him in anger from the very beginning of his life. And when he saw that Krishna was going to be honored in this way, he became furious. And he began to offer insult after insult after insult. And the Pandavas wanted to kill him right on the spot. But Krishna was very tolerant because he had given a benediction to Shishupal's mother. I won't kill him. He was actually destined to kill him. When Shishupal was born, he was born with, what was it, an extra head? Extra arms? I can't remember. Oh God. At any rate, when extra arms, I think. Yeah, and so it was said that sages said that when he was born, then all the family members, everybody came to offer benedictions, and they said that, oh, when the one who is destined to kill him comes before him, then these extra arms fall off, right? I think it's arms. So everybody came, and then when Krishna came, who was older, he was, like an adult then, Shishupal, that happened, and those extra things fell off. And then the mother realized, oh, Krishna, who is kind of like our extended family member, we all love him, but he's going to kill my son. So she, please, don't kill my son. And he said, okay, I won't kill your son until he commits 100 offenses, right? If he insults me over 100 times, then I have to. I'm a Kshatriya, honor, this and that. So at this sacrifice, he going on and on and on and on, and Krishna's tolerating. Finally, he hit 100, and then Krishna sent the disc and chopped off his head. But then the spark of the spirit soul rose up into the air in front of everybody. Everybody saw it, and then it entered the body of Krishna. So Yudhishthira inquired. He was sitting there. He saw it, and he speaks to Narada. It's very wonderful that the demon Shishupal merged into the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though extremely envious. This Sayuja Mukti is impossible to attain, even for great transcendentalists. How then did the enemy of the Lord attain it? O great sage, we are all eager to know the cause for this mercy of the Lord. I've heard that formerly a king named Vena blasphemed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all the Brahmanas consequently obliged him to go to hell. Shishupal should have also been sent to hell. How then did he merge into the Lord's existence? And then it begins to describe him from the very beginning. He was sinful, he was envious, he was blaspheming the Lord, both he and his brother Dantavakra, right? And yet, they didn't seem to experience what they should have, right? Degradation of their good karma, leprosy, their tongue falling off, whatever. Generally, when somebody blasphemes the great personality, right away, bad things begin to happen to them. So how is it possible for Shishupal and Dantavakra, in the presence of most exalted persons, to enter very easily into the body of Krishna, whose nature is very difficult to attain? And so he says, I'm astonished by this. I can't understand it. My mind is going back and forth. And Shukadev Goswami was very pleased by that question. And he said, I'm sorry, not Shukadev, Narad. Shukadev's giving the narration. Narad is talking to Yudhisthira. Sorry. O king, blasphemy and praise, chastisement and respect are experienced because of ignorance. The body of the conditioned soul is planned by the Lord for suffering in the material world through the agency of the external energy. Right? So he goes on to explain this point that Krishna's beyond the dualities of praise and chastisement. Right? He has no material body. He has no conception of I and mine in relationship to this material world. So he says, thus he has no enemy and no friend. When he chastises the demons, it is for their good. And when he accepts the prayers of the devotees, it is for their good. He is affected neither by prayers nor by blasphemy. He is only acting for the interests and the ultimate purification of all living entities. But some need punishment and purification through that, right? And some are being rewarded for spiritual activities and further purification through that. So then he gives this verse. Tasmad varana bandena nirvairena bayena va snehat kamena vayunjat katanchin nekshate pratak. Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear, by affection, or by lusty desires, by all of these or any one of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. Right? But Srila Prabhupada warns that just because of this, don't think that you should therefore feel free to blaspheme the Lord. This is not the regular principle. Bhakti Yoga means Anukuyena Krishnanushilanam, that we have to serve very favorably. This is the real injunction. But then he says, it's said that although an enemy thinks of Krishna unfavorably, the Lord is unaffected by such anti-devotional service. Thus he offers his benedictions even to Shishupal and similarly inimical conditioned souls. But the stress is given to favorable execution of devotional service, not purposeful blasphemy of the Lord. Because then he quotes Nindam Bhagavata Srinvams Tat Parasya Janasya Va Tatonai Paitya Sopi Yatyada Sukatachchuta. One who hears blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees should immediately take action or should leave. Otherwise, you're put into hellish life perpetually. Right? So it's clear. But what we're getting from this is how merciful the Lord is. Even though blasphemy is never recommended, never encouraged, it's in fact condemned in every way, either to do it or to be in the presence of it, we're making the point that the Lord, when somebody is so absorbed in them, by performing that action, there may be some special opportunity for them. And Srila Prabhupada gives like a 3-page purport to explain this. And he says at the end, the conclusion is that one should not give up pure devotional service. For one's own benefit, one should not imitate Hiranyakashipu or Shishupal. This is not the way to achieve success. Why? Because again, Krishna says, Yayatam mam prapadyante. We want to cultivate devotional moods and sentiments that awaken our own particular mood of service, right? And then engage in loving, beautiful exchanges, right? With the Lord and with the Lord's devotees. This anger or envy or whatever uh, that these personalities, it gave them the opportunity for a special kind of purification and exhibition of the Lord's mercy. But it's not the favorable path that our Goswamis recommend. And it's certainly not a path of bliss and happiness. When you read about the constant anger and rage and dissatisfaction in the minds and hearts of Hiranyakashipu, Ravan, and others. So, Narad Muni continued, this is very interesting, by devotional service, one cannot achieve such intense absorption and thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one can through enmity towards him. That is my opinion. He's saying the intensity of the thought is very powerful when you're angry, right, or envious. Because when you're angry or envious, you're always thinking of that person, but in a negative way. So intensity of absorption doesn't necessarily mean quality of absorption, right, or quality of thought. Then he gives the example of the grassworm, the insect captured by the wasp and locked in the nest, and it's constantly thinking in fear, when will he come back? When will he sting me? When will he eat me? So when he dies, he takes that kind of birth, right? So even though he was in fear, he takes the body of one that he was meditating on. So now here's the verse. This is the verse, and later on in the Ras Panchajai, Pariksit Maharaj is going to ask again, how is it that the gopis are able to get the supreme benediction when they're meditating on Krishna out of lust, out of kam? And Shukadeva Goswami is going to say, wait, I already explained that to you much, much earlier. And so why are you asking me this again? But he's asking it again just so that people could understand that the gopis' meditation and the kind of lust they had was not the mundane kind. So anyway, this verse and then the next one, these are very critical. Kamadve shadbayat snehad yata bhakteshvare mana aveshatad agram hitva bahavastad gatim gata. This is verse 30 in that first chapter. Many, many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection, or devotional service. I shall now explain how one receives Krishna's mercy simply by concentrating one's mind upon him. And Srila Prabhupada writes an astonishing purport here, where he quotes from the 33rd chapter, the end of it. This is the chapter of the Rasa Leela. And at the end of it, after describing the Rasa Leela, Shukadeva Goswami says, Prakriti tam vrajavadubir idam cha Vishno, Shradhanvito anushunuyad atavanajaja, bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhyakamam, hridrogam ashvapihinota chadena dira. If a bona fide listener hears of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, which seem to be lusty affairs, the lusty desires in his heart, which constitute the heart disease of the conditioned soul, will be vanquished, and he will become a most exalted devotee of the Lord. If one who hears of the gopis' lusty behavior with Krishna becomes free from lusty desires, certainly the gopis who approached Krishna became free from all such desires. Similarly, Shishupal and others were very much envious of Krishna and who constantly thought of Krishna became free from envy. Nanda Maharaj and Mother Jashoda were fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness because of affection. When the mind is somehow or other fully absorbed in Krishna, the material part is very soon vanquished, and the spiritual part, attraction to Krishna, becomes manifest. So that's the key. Somehow or other, remember Krishna, right? This indirectly confirms that if one thinks of Krishna enviously, simply because of thinking of Krishna, he becomes free from all sinful reactions and thus becomes a pure devotee. And then its examples are given in the following verse. So remember that verse we heard the other day, which is the kind of like shloka that describes everything about devotion. What is it? Satatam Maranam Vishnu Vishma Svartam Nagajatuchit. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. This injunction is the guide by which we understand all other injunctions in the Vedic literature. Every instruction, every description is meant to support this concept. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. And so even though they were envious, even though they were fearful, they were always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. And thus, the bad part got purified and the good part came up. So now this verse, following that one, explains Gopya kamad bayat kankso dveshat shaidya dayo nirpa sambandad vrishayas nehad yuyam bhaktya vayam vivo. My dear King Yudhisthira, the gopis by their lusty desires, Kamsa by his fear, Shishupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familial relationship with Krishna, you Pandavas by your great affection for Krishna, and we, the general devotees, by our devotional service, have obtained the mercy of Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada explains not only different moods, but different persons achieve different types of mukti. Sayujya, Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Sashti, according to their own intense desire, which is called bhav. Thus, it's described here that the gopis, by their lusty desire, which were based upon their intense love for Krishna, became the most beloved devotees of the Lord. And he goes on to explain something special about their kind of love, and then everyone else, right? So those two verses are really that which explain and which was reiterated and explained again in those later chapters, how and why Hiranyakashipu, all these kings, all the people that fight with Krishna, they all also ultimately achieve the supreme destination, and how the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj actually, and his appearance, are meant to give us that foundation, that teaching, that broad and absolutely complete teaching of how to live, how to practice bhakti undisturbed, how to love the Lord, serve the Lord under all conditions, which appear sometimes favorable, they appear unfavorable, but how, ultimately, as you see with Prahlad, he saw nothing as unfavorable because he saw everything in relationship with the Lord. And if the Lord has some desire, some pastime, whatever he wants to do with me, that's all right. I'm his servant. I just want to meditate on him and serve him in whatever way he desires. Right? So, 10 chapters, all to elaborate and explain in extraordinary detail. Does the Lord show favor to some and envy towards others? Right? And how is it possible that people who are envious achieve the supreme destination? Right? How is it that the Lord appears to give them that which is really difficult even for great sages to achieve? But the principle is that Krishna is always creating conditions by which we may try to remember him and his devotees. And by that remembrance, no matter how flawed it may be in the beginning, if we continue with it and try to cultivate that remembrance in a favorable way through the limbs of bhakti, right, under the guidance of a great pure devotee, then this destination will easily be achieved even by us. Because again, if demons could achieve it, Kamsa, Kamsa later, different situation, but Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Shishupal, Dantavakra, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, then what to speak of us who are trying desperately to serve Krishna in a loving and favorable mood, right? Under the guidance of the followers of Krishna in his most merciful form, Lord Nityananda, Lord Gauranga, right? So that will end that now. This will be the end of this, and we'll go back to Bhadranasya tomorrow, right? We've wrapped it all up. Okay, so sorry for rambling on. Seem to be rambling lately. Doing my best, trying, you know. Anyway, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.